Welcome back to Behind the Screen. I believe I can read the calendar and I should be streaming right now. I'm a mod now, so if there are any problems, I can bop you, so behave. I will not abuse this power. So before we get started, there are a few things in chat which you can probably see. Mizari, no experience with Scion, that's not really necessary. It's the whole point of these streams and the point of the chronicle that I'm writing on these streams. It'll be an introductory thing, and by hopefully walking you through my thought process in creating it, hopefully you will gain an understanding of the whole idea. But Black Plague is it's about teamwork. Tui is highly tied into teamwork. One of the things on the character sheet, which we'll flick over to in a moment, is the band deed. I mentioned this last time about it's a goal for the band to achieve together, because it's all about story and creating your own myth. Then everything is Black Blade 369. Where you said everything is about creating the story together. Which again, I've mentioned a few times that for me, role playing is a collaborative thing, and that's why I like Scion so much, because it does promote the collaborative action, collaborative gameplay style, rather than just we're all heroes of our own story. You're heroes of your shared story as well. But that's something I was going to touch on briefly. However, I will not be able to see chat for a few moments, just because I have to go through my standard disclaimers. Just check everything. You know what? I can move this to a different window so I can see everything. Everything seems to be working fine. I assume everyone can hear me fine. So standard disclaimers. I am disabled. It could result in twitching, stuttering, slurring of speech, muscle spasms, which again, some people could find disquieting. If they do, I apologize. I don't apologize. I understand if you want to just kind of look away for a few minutes or whatever. Yep, that seems fine. Sorry, I was just checking my workflow. I do sometimes struggle with multiple trains of thought, so if someone asks a question, I'll try and finish what I'm talking about at that very moment. Maybe make a note of the question somewhere, or make a note of further topics of discussion. Address the question, and then obviously come back to what I was talking about. I am also ill. I have a cold. So if you'll permit me a bit of nerd humor, this stream today is brought to you at complication 2. I did take some cold and flu earlier, so it should be fine, but I do have a slight lingering headache, and kind of, my thought processes are a bit stuffier than usual. As you can see from the caption above the text, kind of about here-ish, feel free to ask anything you can think of relating to playing role-playing games. I will answer as best I can. I am not authoritative. Yes, you should obey the chat rules and be nice to everyone. Yes, I'm a Scion of this Twitch channel, I guess, in a way. Thank you. See, I've lost my train of thought already. Yes, ask anything you want to. You can think of. I'll address it when I can. Relating to Scion, role-playing games in general, any other game really. But the content created during these streams for now will be Scion related. But I will answer any questions about anything related to role-playing and theonyxpath games that I know. Otherwise, it'll be just kind of find out through this link maybe. Also, we are, building a small community of theonyxpath content creators, and I don't know if it'll be this stream, but just so that we're all aware, let's say the main vehicle of the chronicle for the antagonistic actions, will give players, if they choose to use it, access to a custom stunt called Yeet into Space. This is a threat from Mage the Awakening Occultist Anonymous, an actual play on the channel, which I thought the threat was great, so I decided I'd work it into this somehow. So look out for that. Also check out the actual play. You might like it. You'll see Silicon Path which is one of the bots, share links to a Deviant Kickstarter and Scarred Lands Kickstarter. I will explain those at the end of the stream. Right, so Blackblade, you had some questions about damage. So before we get started on this stuff, that tab, and please, thank you. So this is the character sheet. I could zoom in. Was it 76.3? I'll zoom in a little bit. Down here at the bottom where it says health. I went over this last time. I believe that this box, this injured, should be a bruised. It is a bruised on the hero sheet. On the origin sheet, for some reason, it's injured. So I passed your question as being ideas for injured conditions. I would personally leave limb removal as a maimed condition at the most. So damage in general. So the way damage works is you have you start with one bruised condition, one bruised slot, one injured slot, one main slot, and taken out. So every player character has 4 health essentially. Depending on your stamina, which is up here, you gain additional bruised slots, which is why I think this should be bruised. When you take damage, usually as the result of an antagonist using the inflict damage stunt, you gain an associated condition. Now you'll notice that these are all just vague: bruised, injured, maimed. Taken out is what it sounds like. Probably not dead unless you've worked with the story guide to kill off your character in a suitably dramatic way, or if it furthers the story, so you want to go to the underworld, that kind of thing. This I've seen as a bit of a turn-off for some people who prefer more concrete, less abstract definitions of damage. I guess I know players like that, and obviously the internet, people will be consulting the internet for kind of guidance as to what bruised, injured, maimed, taken out could mean. So, sorry, it doesn't have to be literally bruised. It could be shallow grazes, things like that. But the +1 on the side of the sheet, again, this is the official sheet. There is a Mr. Gon has also produced an unofficial fan sheet where this is changed to -1. Or +1D or something. So the plus is simply, it adds a complication to any task which would tie into that condition. So when you take damage and you take the bruised injury, you get a condition related to that adds +1 complication to any task it could feasibly interfere with. So maybe it's a gunfight and the bullet grazes your arm. Now, obviously, you're not going to be, or probably not, that's probably not going to affect your movement. So sprinting, foot races, anything like that, you're probably not going to have that complication. But hand-to-hand fighting, steadying a firearm, or a bow or anything like that, arm wrestling, climbing, anything like that, and before you get that seen to, whether through divine healing, mundane healing, that +1 complication is going to apply. So that's like sprains, strains, minor cuts, bruises, as the name suggests. It could also be distractions, like, I guess, blood dripping into your eyes and things like that. Injured, slightly more serious. These are your deep cuts, your probably dislocations, heavy bruising, certainly, like, the whole side of your body's bruised, that kind of bruising. Pulled muscles, depending on the severity of the pull or the strain, whatever, however you prefer to think about it. Torn ligaments, although torn ligaments might also come under maimed. Also, I guess injured could cover broken bones, depending on, I guess, which bone is broken. Maimed would be broken bones, probably. Fractured ribs, concussions, things like that. The more heavy, the worse injuries. No, that's even worse grammar. most distracting injuries. Let's put it that way. The most distracting injuries. So the ones that make it difficult to concentrate, to do anything. These are also probably going to be the ones that encompass more of the body. So going back to the bruised example of the bullet grazed to the arm, that's obviously going to hurt when you move your arm in certain ways. As an injured, that could be a bullet through the shoulder. So your arm's out, probably some of your upper body movement's limited because you're trying not to move the shoulder. At maimed level, it's probably just a bigger bullet wound or a series of bullet wounds to the shoulder, or kind of upper chest area. And then taken out is, as it says, you're taken out of the fight somehow. Could be you're unconscious. Could be that you just choose not to fight anymore due to physical injury or mental strain, fatigue, lack of morale, that kind of thing. I hope that sort of gave you some examples. Black Plague. Really, if it helps you to think of it in terms of major, minor, and grievous injury, go with minor, major, and grievous injury. Go with that. Whatever helps you to remember which kind of tier of injury it would be. You might also come across situations where player takes 2 injury conditions as a result of critical success on the inflict damage stunt. In which case, those could be 2 completely unrelated injuries because they could be 2 body blows or 2 gunshot wounds, or 2 maybe they avoid the attack but break an arm falling as they dive desperately under the bus being thrown at their head. I don't know. It's Scion. You can do some weird stuff even at Origin. I hope that at least answers your question slightly and gives you some ideas about damage conditions. I will admit, when I was first reading the rulebooks, I was still thinking about it in terms of bashing and aggravated damage, and this is a problem I have with really any theonyxpath and White Wolf game, because I started with Chronicles of Dark, then New World of Darkness. I do tend to think of things in terms of bashing, lethal, and aggravated, and I'm slowly moving away from that, and hopefully I won't use that terminology. But for this, bruised, injured, maimed, taken out, you have 5 boxes. What do you remember someone using a gun? So a gun wouldn't use aggravated damage in Scion. It would be an enhancement. So it could be a plus. Actually, I can just give you examples. I think there's a list of weapons in here. Index. You can't. I am one of the Kickstarter backers, although you won't see my name because it was a group buy. I think there's a list of weapons. As far as I know, I'm still okay to show the PDF on stream. So 122 to 125. There we go. Just to sorry, I got the sleeves of my shirt rolled up and my headphone cord was caught in it. So sample weapons, for example. So let's go submachine gun. So everything's built up into weapon tags, which is what this entire list is. So thing had happened, it's harder for new ideas. You think about it, you're correct, but if a gift from the Guardian artifact sense can't spell Sion's version, apparently. A relic. That kind of thing. Oh, the aggravated attack here. I see what you mean. Weapon does grievous magical damage, such as blade mid reveal face of a god. Aggravated injury conditions, things like burn off completely, melt to face, going to be hit by magical energies. Heirlooms, yeah, that's fine. So, for magical supernatural injuries, really, like, anything would go. I would say, this is something I was going to talk about briefly anyway, but when it comes to heirlooms and relics in terms of weapons, the book advises a motif, which is how that kind of relic performs in a way, how it channels legend and magic into the world. So first port of call would be the motif. So if I can show origin, I can probably show hero. Where is it? Storytelling. Nope, that's the one I wanted. That's the one for later. Birthrights, relics. It's birthrights in second E. They're not heirlooms anymore. Where is it? Here we go. So Eric Donner, who's one of the token characters, franchise characters, whatever, pre-gens. Scion of Thor. He has the revolver Giant's Bane with the motif of the flash and fury of the thunderstorm. So if that is actually statted up somewhere, I believe. Let's see if it has Giant's Bane. There we go. Enhancement, 1 general. So just do a bit of it. Does so enhancement counts as extra success if you succeed at the action. So does that? It doesn't have the aggravated tag. But if it had the aggravated tag, for example, the bullet could, and they crit, which is, you added an additional injury condition. So the bullet would be the first injury condition in this potential example. So that's just, we'll say that's just you first, you're completely fresh, you've taken no damage. So that's a bruised condition. So it could be like, as a grazed arm. And then the crit, the second injury condition, you're probably going to be, for this we'll assume the 3 health boxes of bruised, injured, maimed, without additional bruised. So then the injured condition could be related to the motif. There's like a concussive blast of thunder follows the round as it hits you. So the round grazes you, but then the thunder kind of hits you, maybe cracks a rib, maybe fractures your collarbone, that kind of thing. So anything that suggests bludgeoning, go for things like that. I guess broken bones, heavy bruising, anything that suggests piercing or kind of impaling, slashing, anything edged. Obviously, that's more going to be deep cuts, lacerations. If your players have also done them in such a way, have like created their own relics, birthrights, whatever, in such a way that they have sentient weapons that dance around or whatever. And a condition could also be just as a distracted or as you're trying to, or defensive, something like that, as you're trying to deal with this weapon that's attacking you of its own free will, but also the threats around you. So in that instance, the aggravated damage would probably just the condition. So we'll go back to Giant's Bane, bruised, grazed arm. The aggravated damage could be ringing ears, as you're deafened. Well, it'd be deafened actually for injured. If it was another bruised condition, ringing ears would probably play into it. Something that I do a lot, which Scion luckily enhances with its reliance on, just go back to the character sheet, on vague and ambiguous terminology for actual mechanical effect, is go back to the fiction. This is something that I picked up from, obviously just good practice, but also like Powered by the Apocalypse games, is whenever I'm stuck for anything, go to the fiction, see if anything grabs your attention. So in this instance, consult the motif. Look at the kind of weapon that's dealing the damage. See if anything immediately springs to you. If nothing immediately springs to you from that, ask the players if they can think of anything. Go to the player it's impacting first, and then throw the question to the table if they can't think of anything. If nothing else occurs to you, just type in random injury. See if it probably exists for other games like injury tables, that kind of thing. Consult one of them if you have to. Obviously, that will slow the game down a little bit. But last question I did that lethal and Ag-pass.bashing. Is that correct? Well, as you can see, there's no tags for bashing, lethal, and aggravated anymore. Where did that list of weapons go? So aggravated damage. No points cost for damage type because they only really deal one damage type. Aggravated damage is magical damage. The only reason that aggravated, bashing, and lethal are in the game anymore is just to differentiate what the weapon can and can't do. So a bashing weapon can't sever a limb for obvious reasons, and a lethal weapon, because it has an edge, it can't inflict bruised or battered conditions. For this, specifically for this, because there's no reference made to battered anywhere in the rules, because I got confused by this. Also here, broken and battered injury conditions. I'm assuming what they mean is not the generic bruised injury, although it's entirely possible they do. It's unclear. But you can't bruise someone with a lethal weapon. It's always going to be an open wound or something like that. I'd lean towards that's what they mean, because you can obviously, if you attack someone who's wearing armor with a sword, you can bruise them, which would be a light injury and a minor injury, going back to the minor major grievous model to allow for terminology changes. But on its own, you can't, unless you use the flat of a blade, which is, weird. You can't bruise someone with an edged weapon. Does that answer the question? These are also damage types, I believe. Which are the same as you. Just want to make sure it's not done. Yeah, because it's all vague, a lot of it's left up to, personal preference. And does rely a lot on just being comfortable with making off-the-cuff calls about things like that. But yeah, I hope that answers some questions people have. I know I've seen other questions elsewhere, like, what does this mean, and how do I represent what is an injured condition? It never states it. Or my question was, where does it mention scratch, cut, or bleeding out? Things like that. There we go, though. So scratch would be a bruised condition, cut would be a injured, bleeding out would be a maimed. There you go. There's a couple of examples. I guess battered would be bruised, broken would be injured, maimed would probably be concussion. I've mentioned it also, critical stunt, critical success, critical damage on the inflict damage stunt. You need 4 successes for that. So unless you really kind of out-level your opponent in terms of combat ability, or there's a scale thing, scale being relative ability. So in a race, a car is scale 1, for example, and a person is scale 0. So if you're a demigod fighting a mortal, there's probably a significant scale increase there, so you're probably just that was a terrible example, but you're almost certainly going to knock them out in one go, for example, because of the scale. It's not really something we need to discuss just yet, but we'll get there. As you can see, weapons have loads of tags. None of these example firearms do aggravated damage. Shotguns do lethal. They all do lethal, though, because you can't really, unless you, say, hit them in the armor, you can't really bruise someone with a bullet. Sorry, with a slug. Got to get the terminology right. See, sword lethal, staff bashing. So I hope that answered the question about injury conditions. They are abstract, maddeningly so in some instances, but it is what it is. I myself prefer abstract rules to having to flick through page after page after page of injury conditions. So I think we're good. I think that answers the question. Do you feel satisfied with the answer, Black Plague? Oh, also the numbers in brackets are the cost of the tag. So you'll see here a weapon may have up to 3 total points of tags. So aggravated damage takes up 2 of those. Arcing takes 1 of those. I aggravated, bashing, and lethal are damage types, and it can only have one damage type. So that's what all that's about. Oh, here's scale, which I'll refer to at a later point, probably towards the end of writing this chronicle, when it becomes relevant. Okay, so that's that. I think that's a Wendigo or a Wendigo. Can't think of anything I'd like to add about injury conditions. You'll also notice that some have a minus cost and some have more than 3 costs. Personally, like I is black picking. It's really the only area I got kind of I get like a lot. Well, what you could do then, Black Plague, is I guess just go through and just make a list of, like, I guess a generic list of injuries for each bruised, injured, maimed, taken, well, not taken out, but bruised, injured, maimed. There are a few examples, I think, scattered throughout the books. There's probably plenty of examples on the internet for other games. Any search for minor injuries and major injuries in terms of real life injuries might work as well. And that way, if you do get stuck, you've got a list to quickly consult. As I say, I appreciate it's abstract, and as you say, you like ideas, but sometimes in the heat of things, when you're trying to keep a game moving, much like when I'm doing these streams or streaming on my own channel, complete mind blank, and you're like, oh god, so what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And then in that instance, I say, go back to the fiction, see what the fiction's saying happens. I mean, really, there's my stock get out of jail answer for everything, but it's true. So that is what it is. Right. So that was that. Again, any follow-up questions, please feel free to ask. However, last time, I should also say, so last time we went through how to build a character for the chronicle that I'm writing, A Rude Awakening. I'm going to provide 6 pre-gens with it. I have 5 already. Went through how to make one on stream with Ash. That took pretty much the entire stream, and we didn't finish it. I did make a mistake in the stream in that I noted down Pantheon assets incorrectly. I had them listed down as the Tuaha de Dinans Pantheon skills. Pantheon assets, what? Pantheon skills. So I took about 5 minutes after the stream ended to reverse engineer what I'd done, and I believe corrected the dot problem. So you'll notice there's no longer, I think it was like 3 or 4 dots in close combat with the club specialty. Instead, persuasion's maxed out at 5 with the hostile situation specialty. I believe that I think they were the only 2 that actually needed changing based on the work I did after the stream. If when this is published, because it'll be published on StoryPath Nexus, if I get comments saying this character sheet's wrong, I will of course then just consult the tape, which I admit has not yet been uploaded to YouTube to my channel because I was on holiday. I've just noticed how low the webcam is. There we go. I was on holiday, so I couldn't upload the video after the week for sub-exclusivity. I got back home Sunday. I was exhausted on Sunday. Yesterday was busy, and then today obviously I'm doing this. So last behind the screen will go up after this stream ends, and after I stream as well, so it'll be this evening at some point. So I fixed the dot situation. The only thing left is birthrights. So it's just to refresh everyone's brain about the character creation process, and I'll sum up the character that we made at the end. So concept, I started with, was it naive hedonist, but it ended up being a compassionate peacemaker. The paths are your background, the character's background, how they define themselves, and their relation to society or an organization. So Ash's background was child of the system. I include their pronouns in the name section. Oops. Their role background is Shield of the Lost. They work within the system to help those who need it. And their Pantheon organization background is Soul of the Community, because that's how they interact with the world around them. Good morning, Plastic Age Plays. Good morning. Thank you for being here. So that's what the background is. And again, I'll recap the whole character once they're finished. And then skills, you get 3 skills from each background, which can have a maximum of 5 dots. If you have over 3 dots, you get a specialty. The black filled in boxes are path asset skills. That's why I said asset earlier. You can only have one path asset skill twice for obvious reasons. Otherwise, you'd be over 5 dots quite easily. Attributes. Attributes are how you are as a person. Divided into the 3 arenas. Mental, physical, social. So brain, body, social. Brass, I guess, if you want to stick with the B theme, as I did for an ill-fated role-playing game I wrote. And then each arena has an approach. Power, finesse, resistance. They determine how you kind of interact with the world. Every character has a favored approach, whether that's power, so bullying the way through problems, finesse, dancing around the problems to solve them, or resistance, just kind of allowing the problems to wear themselves out. As you can see with Ash's favored approach is resistance. Combination of arena and approach gives you the attribute. You assign dots based on primary, secondary, tertiary. Your favored resistance, your favored approach gets extra dots, which if it takes you to 5, you can put elsewhere. So it's a very, very speedy recap of last time. Calling and knacks are the divine stuff. So you'll see that Ash's calling is healer. You consult the divine parent. Ash's in this instance is Inari. And your chat sign has a small cheat sheet for normal rolls such as stealth. Well, see, the problem is with things like that, because it's such an open-ended system, your players would benefit more from having kind of their own cheat sheet for their own personal character. So the example that I can always think of when determining dice rolls is, say you're in a fight. So Ash is in a fight for whatever reason. Ash's close combat is 2, which 2 dice to the pool, it's okay. Their might and dexterity aren't that high, so they're not going to be doing, brawling. They're not going to be doing 1,000 jabs, but their stamina, which in most games isn't considered even a combat thing, apart from to give you health, their stamina's 4, which is quite a large number of dice to add to a pool. So you have to. It helps if the player can convey how they want to approach a problem through the narrative. So if I were playing Ash and I were trying to throw punches using stamina, I would be describing how I'm just getting in close, taking the blows that are coming my way, and then just every now and then lashing out and making contact. Stealth, you're probably going to go with a finesse. Like traditionally, of course, stealth would be probably dexterity and subterfuge in the vast majority of cases. But if you wanted to do something else, cunning and survival maybe, as an awareness of the situation around you, paying attention to what you can hear, what you can see, to give you a chance to hide from guards that way. In higher levels, you might have cloaking tech, I guess. So that'd be a technology and intellect, perhaps, to figure out how to activate it. Stealth one of those awkward ones, I'll be honest. You're probably not going to be using a social attribute for stealth. But as long as the player can make a decent justification for the dice pool they want to build, I'd allow it. And I believe that's what the book says also. So it might be worth them having a cheat sheet of how they like to approach things. Probably, if possible, going with their favored approach. Obviously, it's going to give you a higher chance of success because it's the largest pool, but sorry, larger pool. But there we go. But I don't see that a cheat sheet per se would be difficult to create. All you'd need would be there is a table somewhere of difficulties. I can't remember which chapter it's in. It's probably the story path system, right? Down here, maybe? There we go. Level of difficulty. And then complications obviously add to that, but I think there was a thing that reinforces what I just said somewhere in here, but I don't want to just spend this stream clicking through a PDF that anyone could purchase and read for their very own selves. The only thing to mention is skill specialties generally apply if you are trying to if your knowledge of something would help you in another way. So Ash's specialty of hostile situations, if they're trying to, I don't know, diffuse a mob perhaps of not disadvantaged youth, they'd gain 1 enhancement on any leadership roles in this instance. Obviously some actions will lend themselves to certain skills, but I would say it depends entirely on, I guess, context, really. So something that some players will do is like, I want to hide in this crowd, in which instance perhaps they could use manipulation and subterfuge to just blend in with everyone, or composure to keep calm. Calling, yes. So you check your... I hope that answered any question and rambled on for like 5 minutes too long. You check your divine parent, your character's divine parent. In this case, let's say Ash's is Inari, under the Amatsukami. They have a list of 3 callings. Yes, 3 callings. Which is the kind of the divine archetype they fulfill. These are in the origin book at the back in Appendix 2. And they get their own chapter in Origin in Scion Hero. So Matsukami, for the Kami, Inari, their callings are Creator, Healer, and Liminal. So Liminal is about crossing thresholds, usually like dreams, secrets, sometimes actual physical thresholds though. You'll notice each one has a purview. It doesn't really play into it as much for Origin characters, but these are the spheres over which they have supernatural influence. So let's say callings are the divine archetypes, or mythological archetypes, legendary, whatever. Legendary, I guess, is the better term, or mythological than divine. Each calling has a selection of knacks related to it. At Origin, they're kind of minor effects. So the one that we have for Ash, for example, bare minimum, and here's the list of callings. Bare minimum means that Ash is always able to safely tend wounds, even with no sanitary medical tools available. No risk to patient, no advanced difficulty in what they're doing. They can always, as long as they have the essentials, they can do it. Just because of that kind of minor touch of the divine, even though they're not, they have no legend at this point. That was roughly where we ended last time. Virtue's a sliding scale thing. So there is a final step to the character creation process, the finishing touches, which I went about half through and then I ran out of time. So each character receives additional 5 extra skill dots, so that's why some of these skills have dots in without the square being filled in, and some of them just, so that's 3, and I think I added 2 to, I think I added 1 to survival and 1 somewhere else. I can't quite remember anymore. It's been 2 weeks. Alright, if it makes sense, it's good. I suppose it feels book didn't feel okay. Come up with a reason why. Mind you, storyteller may take over and help them get going. Yeah, obviously be gentle with it, but if they're struggling to get away from the book has all of the answers, kind of suggest things. Don't tell them this is how you do it, but be more like, well, you could build it using this skill and this attribute if that's how you want to approach the problem, or ask someone else to do it first as an example, if you know someone at the table is comfortable with that kind of thing, so that they then have something to yeah, like that's how I do it. So 5 additional skill dots. We did an extra attribute dot. We did. I skipped this bit because that's what we're doing right now. And then defense, movement dice, health, etc. is all sorted. So final step of character creation. You can choose 2 additional knacks or 4 points of birthrights. Sorry. As I said last time, the whole point of the Chronicle is to function as an introductory thing for players new to the setting, to the system, and to the characters who, while they live in a world of Scions and Titan spawn and godly intervention on occasion, aren't that, well, one, they don't know that they are Scions, and 2, aren't that involved in it. Because I to me, obviously your mileage may vary with this, but to me, if every kind of Scion Chronicle happens and is a regular occurrence, the world with capital W, the setting of the game, would be very clustered with dragons and trolls, and people would be more aware of them than they are. Like, they know they exist, but they'd know where they were and kind of things like that. For me personally, obviously again, YMMV, having the characters start off in a position where they're aware of the world and the gods existing and things like that, which is the assumed default setting, but their mundane lives have never really been touched by anything of legend, is a good starting point, A, for people who have no idea what the game's about, and B, just as a good starting point for a character to build a legend, coming from nothing to something. So the Chronicle, the Rude Awakening, is called that because the player characters are going to learn about the world, capital W, and their role within it by the end of the origin section. It will be a 2-parter. When Demigod and God come out, I'll also try and do chapters 3 and 4 for those tiers. So as part of that, when I created the other characters, I was very, very conscious of the fact that I couldn't have too many supernatural effects, whether like overt knacks or birthrights. I completely lost the word. Birthrights. One character has a birthright. One character, Martina, has a muse. So I guess we should probably talk about birthrights. So birthrights. Going to this page. You can see it on the left. There are 4 kinds of birthrights: creatures, followers, guides, relics. Creatures are what it sounds like. There is an argument to be made that while it will be a legendary magical creature and thus probably not entirely mundane, their intelligence should be capped, because otherwise there'll be a follower or even a guide. Followers are characters, they have their own dice pools. They act with your character, but they sound like people in a subservient position or of like an equal level who just agree to accompany your character. So friends, that kind of thing, as well as Amazon warriors and biker gangs. Guides are teachers, mentors, what have you. All of these are given by the gods usually as well. I should probably mention that. So if you have one at character creation, it's assumed that you have already had your visitation, which is when your divine parent makes themselves known. Relics are what they sound like. They're artifacts imbued with divine power. Could take a variety of forms, have a wide variety of effects, and are generally pretty overt displays of supernatural ability. At origin, no matter if you're, choose the Muse as an example. Muse is a 4-dot, so it took all 4 of Martina's birthright dots. You'll notice it has a purview access. Because Martina is an origin level character, she cannot access the purview because that requires legend expenditure, and that's obviously something that your character can't do. Also, it mentions momentum here. I can't remember if I discussed momentum last time. Close that tech notes document. Oh, I did. Momentum's a way of failing forward. Let's just leave it at that. But the thing to just bear in mind is that at origin level, a character cannot access purviews through their birthright because they just can't power them. So I was thinking, and if you have any ideas, obviously feel free to let me know in chat. This is a communal exercise. I'm taking ideas, working with them. This is how we made Ash. It's how I want the show to work going forwards, as well as answering questions. I want your input. But I was thinking, first 2 dots would be a fox. Inari, pretty heavily associated with kitsune. I also apologize for butchering any terms. I don't speak Japanese. But I know it's not pronounced kitsune. I assume kitsune. So I was thinking perhaps it's a fox that is nearing its first century of life. So it's nearing the level of being a full kitsune. And then as tiers of play progress, perhaps experience points can be invested in this to turn it into a follower as a young kitsune. But for now, I was thinking maybe just have it as a 2-dot fox. So where is it? You can't. It's important to note you can't talk to your creature because it's an animal. But they can be trained. They can know, commands and tricks and stuff. But as an example, 2-dot creature may be a larger mundane creature such as a tiger, crocodile, wolf, dangerous bird of prey. Likewise, it could also represent weaker mythological creatures like the Chinese fox, serpapod, or a variety of different nature spirits. Player-created characters have 6 dice in their primary pools. Something which is great about Scion is that the SGPCs, the SGCs, the story guide characters, rather than having this full list of skills and attributes to form a dice pool by, SGCs Stargate command. SGCs have a primary and a secondary pool. Obviously, the secondary is lower. Usually, a few kind of narrative tags about what sort of circumstances that pool would apply to. So it's all abstracted, much like everything else. So for an example antagonists, we can see that a SWAT officer's primary pool related to combat, sniping, athletics. The secondary, demolitions and alertness. If they're caught to do anything else, they roll a desperation pool of 3 die. Or in a more Not actually a kitsune. There's dogs somewhere. Oh no, I'm thinking of the dog from here. Because this is probably what it would be based on. There is a Cerberus Hound example. Sorry, Kerberos Hound example. So the Kerberos Hound, primary pool, biting, chasing, being a good dog. This would, as the restriction says, be down at 6. Secondary pool would probably be down at 5, I think, or something. But as you can see, rather than having a full sheet, loads of dots everywhere, loads of abstract terms, you've got archetype, because that's used for balancing mechanics. Qualities, that tells you what special things what combination of special things it has. Flares are just ways in which it does stuff. The drive, because your characters should only... your characters should have personality behind them. They should exist. They should be real. They should interact with the world for a reason. So this is what the drive is. Obviously, your character concept, I guess, would be analogous, as well as your paths, and then health, defense, initiative. Back up to birthrights. This is all it gives you for creatures, by the way, so it's all very high-level overview. Your only question will be, the fox to your planet custom it goes, and the ability gives. Yeah, so when they gain access to purviews and stuff in Hero, sorry, I could easily see the fox getting an upgrade, either through experience expenditure or when you create a character for Hero and just replace the fox with the improved fox. Probably as a follower, as I say, as a kitsune, which has its own, as you can see, character creation stuff. But it would also do more than just be a fox. So the way I'm imagining it is that it functions as an extremely loyal dog. It's just 2 dot. Where would you? I guess that'd be notes. So we'll go creature. Also, I've said this before and I'll say it again, but so my setup has the mic in front of my keyboard, so I have to touch type, which when people are watching me is not easy. Creature, fox, and okay. So just put 2 asterisks there to signify it's a 2 dot creature. So as I say, this is just it's a loyal fox. It's not magical. It doesn't give access to anything because it's creature. High level play probably would, but for now, just not your only sake because the fox grow character wants to assist because you're more of the story. Just offering those. No, exactly, Black Plague. That's why I like doing this kind of streaming content creation thing. It's a there are loads of videos and articles about how you do things and why you should do things, but there's no actual examples of doing them. So hence the whole idea of this show. And I just really like Scion because I can have magic foxes in my game. So that's fine. So that's 2 of the 4 dots taken up already. Go back up to finishing touches. So that's 2 of the 4 points of birthrights already assigned. So I was thinking, leaning into the healer side of things. And obviously, again, if you have any better idea, please do shout out in chat. That is why you can see the chat below my face, which I might need to move across a little bit now I'm looking at it in more detail. Please keep up. There we go. So they've got a loyal fox. Nightmare Steed. I get distracted from reading rulebooks because just so cool. I'm a nerd. I live my passions. I apologize for nothing. Hopefully people like seeing that kind of enthusiasm on stream. Not a follower. We've already got the fox, and a follower would be awkward. It could just be a friend that has mechanical benefits depending on what they do. So it could perhaps be like an allied police officer based on their background of helping the police with keeping kids off the street. in poorer areas. So it could be that, I guess. But equally, if we're going with the idea that the fox might eventually become a follower as a young kitsune, then that's a lot of followers. Guide, again. So guides are mentors. They give you access to purviews, their own unique stunts and knacks, that kind of thing. There aren't many example guides that aren't overtly supernatural, because they are generally given to you by your divine parent. So we'd have to go back to basics and figure out how we could hide how we could hide a divine guide. With the muse, it was just a case of they just don't bestow their divine influence on Martina. So it's possible. It's possible. As the book says, they can be spirits of the dead, disembodied souls, sapient relics, prophetic dreams or visions, or just half-remembered hints and legacies left from the fingerprints of past lives. Again, that's not really the feel that I'm going for in this chronicle. The chronicle is definitely more about sudden revelations of, this is how the world works, this is my place in it, how do I then deal with that, over, oh yeah, I know, I'm in touch with this regularly through my teacher. I also can't remember what it says about the purview thing, but I remember reading it. Also, guides can have a Deus Ex Machina effect once per story arc, which again, it's not something I'd like to do for this. Certainly the origin level of the chronicle. Maybe when they get to higher levels, another character will get a guide, but I think I'm happy with having one guide in the cast for now. Which leaves us with relics. So relics are just relics are artifacts. They're magical items for an extremely reductive description, but also extremely accurate description. So we've got a 2-dot relic, potentially, or 2 1-dots. So the first thing to decide is what kind of variety the relic is. Is it a classical relic? It's probably not. So that's just the artifact from legend. Archetypal relic could be a replica or an homage, but it's designed to look like an original artifact. Modernized. It's really, the example is the Eye Giala. The iPhone and the Galahorn have an unholy abomination of love child. So it could potentially have a piece of the original relic. So Eric Donner's Revolver Giantsbane has a fragment of Mjolnir in its grip, but it uses the historical artifact to power it still. A brand new relic, which is what I'm leaning towards, can kind of grow with the character, has no specific tie to a god, could just be something that the character doesn't realize, in this instance won't realize, is magical, as this chronicle goes, and kind of the realization that the relic's legend is growing with theirs, and so on and so forth. Or general mass-produced relics that's what it sounds like. There are loads of them in the world. Amulets of Resurrection is an example given here. So the first benefit that it mentions is purviews. Obviously, at Origin, you can't benefit from purview access, so that won't really be needed. It'll be a 2-dot relic probably, so that covers rating. Deed. This is an instance where I'm probably going to. I'd like to step away from the book, maybe, because you're supposed to have a deed, your personally banned deed associated with the relic, as kind of like, this is what I did, to give you as you can see down here, social enhancements based on whether people know about the deed. They don't apply for origin level characters, and 2, I don't want it to be an obviously magical thing. So this is an instance where I'm going to just step away from the book, I believe. Purview, obviously we can't gain access to purviews. Motif, this is what I mentioned earlier about going back to the fiction for injury conditions. Flash and Fury of the Thunderstorm for Giantsbane, for example. It's how it does something. It's the form it takes in the legend. Less applicable at Origin because you don't have a legendary title, so the legend of your relic doesn't really apply. But something to bear in mind. Enhancements is just the number of enhancements it gives you when you use it to do something. Knack, I explained calling knacks is exactly the same. It's an effect that the relic gives you, and then flaws gives you a drawback, as you can see here, to give you page 75, right? To give you stronger effects on the actual relic. Yep, that is... Is it 175? I've got to stop using my number pad to do stuff. Basic rules for character crafting her own relics are found on Scion Origin, page 75. Though doing so is restricted to demigods and gods. I think the page number might be off. That was the wrong one. I wasn't even in the right PDF there. Crafting, here we go. So it does tell you how you can make them, and kind of suggests ways. You're jealous of my number pad? In what way? Do you not have one? I can't use it because all my streaming shortcuts are bound to the numpad rather than the numbers at the top of the keyboard. Apparently Mac users don't need... Oh, wow. I've never used a Mac, so my commiserations. My voice is going. That's the cold making itself known. By the end of this, I'll have no voice. So as you can see, there's no actual kind of hard and fast rules given. I mean, go for it. If it my personal opinion is always, if it'll be useful and you can actually afford to buy it, get it. But I'm a terrible influence, so what do I know? There's no actual hard and fast rules given for creating any of these things. Actually, no, sorry, that was wrong. I have used a Mac. I used one once in school. We had to use the photography studio for an IT lesson. No, not IT. For a lesson, and we had to use the Macs in there to do some work. Not terribly fond of them personally, but there we go. Anyway, I'm lying on stream. Now everyone will know my secret. Oh yeah, that bookmark doesn't work for whatever reason. I'm just checking, but I'm pretty sure there are no hard and fast rules given for creating relics. It's just left up to personal, preference and what you think works and doesn't work. There's not even a... I guess it'd be birthrights, idiot. Me, the idiot, not you watching. Obviously, if you ever want to correct me, please feel free to. I do not know everything. I am just a person who reads a lot. And puts... See relics. I did see relics. There was no entry for relics. I guess I'll just go back to page 201. Oh, right, there is. Whoops. Yeah, see, there's 9 pages of example relics, but page 212 is the... Here's how you make them. You're learning Scion by watching me. That is a terrible idea. Terrible idea, my friend. So this is your rules for making relics. Oh, those emotes are great. Also not showing up on stream. There we go. Yeah, Black Plague, you did ask the hard questions to start with. I appreciate it when people ask the hard questions to start with, because that's when my brain's on, firing on all cylinders, and then it just, over the 2 hours, it just kind of slides slowly out of one ear. So, just a quick recap for those who probably don't want to spend time reading the text while it's there. Relics can give you an enhancement. A 2-dot relic can have a general +1 enhancement that applies all the time. Excellent. I know roughly where I want to put that. Each extra you want adds up to its rating. 1-dot relic can't have a purview unless it has a flaw. A 2-dot can have 1 purview, but again, we can't have purview access, so that seems like a waste of rating point. It's probably not going to qualify as weapon or armor. Custom knack is where it's at for me. So, an effect that's broad enough to apply anytime the relic is used should add 1 dot more than 1. That only applies to certain situations. Use example relics and calling knacks as a gauge for how many dots a custom effect should add. So this was just an idea I had. 1 second. That splitting the 4 dots into 2, so 2-dot creature, 2-dot relic, should probably highlight the 2 sides of, or 2 of the sides of Inari. They shouldn't reinforce the same thing. And Ash was created by Inari. For what purpose? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. That's the kind of thing that is always kind of you discover through play anyway. It's probably not the kind of thing I'll be answering in the content I create, because players will go off script. You'll need to invent things. So if you want to add that kind of thing in, go for it. So with the creature, I thought that could be manifestation of Inari's association with the Kitsune, and that side of things with external relationships. So the relic I thought could be an internal thing, something intrinsic to Ash in this instance, as it's not a gift given by Inari. Sure thing, Black Plague, enjoy. And that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of it could be this, or it could be this, or it could be this. But as ever, and I cannot stress this enough in any role-playing situation, never mind what game it is, even the more out there ones like Deviant and Promethean. Oh, Promethean's so good. I will eventually do material for that on stream if it kills me. Go back to your character concept. Allow that to drive everything. This is still technically character creation. So your character concept should be kind of informing every decision you make during this process. During play, that will change naturally as your character has experiences and grows as a person, in theory. We'll talk about that briefly when we get to the tweak section. You've probably seen the sidebar of this PDF a few times. But for now, I stopped going down the rabbit hole. I stopped considering possibilities and what ifs, and I thought, core of the character is a compassionate peacemaker with the healer calling. That, to me, that calling, because it's an origin thing, because you're going to have one knack active, because you're going to embody one aspect of your divine parent, the healer is the core tenet of Ash right now. Obviously, that will change when they gain access to more callings. But their divine potential and ability to manipulate the world in terms of legend, and not in terms of legend, but supernatural means, that of healing. Specifically of having the bare minimum with which to do stuff. So I'm kind of thinking of kind of doubling down on that side of things. Which, obviously there's a lot of stuff that you have in like a first aid kit, but I have no idea about the name for it yet, and it's a Kami relic, so it should probably have a really poetic name. Nightbot made me jump out the corner of my eye. Oof. Although, yes, follow those social media links. So it should have a fanciful name at some point. Not fanciful, poetic name. For now, because I can't think of anything better. And because it does what it says, magic handkerchief. Relic, I'll put the asterisks for the dots. 2-dot relic. Colon. So going back to this tab, we can see that a 2-dot relic can have a general +1 enhancement that applies all the time. Well, I think that's going on medicine. I think whenever the handkerchief is used to, like, as a bandage or to clean a wound, you're going to get a +1 enhancement to medicine for using it. I think that kind of goes without saying. And again, if you have any better ideas, please do shout up. That's not how you spell medicine. I always do that. It's an I. I'm a proofreader. I should really know these things. Also, it's right there. I don't know why I put the bracket. So, +1 enhancement to medicine. You use it, you succeed at the skill, gives you a minor benefit to doing so. Oh, the cold is annoying. I can feel it just tickling the back of my throat. As I say, not bothered about purviews. The motif, I've got an idea. It's probably what I'll use to inform a name, shall we say. It's not going to be a weapon. It's not armor. It's a handkerchief. And you're back. Excellent. So, other effects. Big custom knack. Hydrate. I've got my large glass of barley water. Well, it's like peach and something squash, but it looks like barley water. It sounds healthier if I say it's barley water, and no one will ever know the difference unless I tell you, which I just did. So, you know, it's something I need to get better at. I did not drink enough during D&D last night. So we're going to go with a custom knack, I think. An effect that's broad enough to apply anytime the relic is used should add 1 dot more than 1 that only applies in certain situations. So I think this is going to be a certain situation thing. Now, I flicked through the rulebook earlier, and there weren't really any decent examples. Also, a lot of the knacks require imbuing legend. So I think it's going to be a stunt rather than a knack. I believe some of them had stunts. Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah, it was really just talk about knacks and stuff. And why I'm doing a magic handkerchief as opposed to some weird weapon. Fate Binding, I guess it could be you heal someone, you fate bound, but I don't like it. I don't like it. Obviously, you have to avoid legend because there's no legend in play right now. It's an origin character. Sorry. There we go. Also, Sacred Boombox. So that's rituals. Reaches across any barrier. So as I say, I flicked through the book earlier because I have the actual physical book as well as the PDF. I prefer flicking through physical books. It's just easier for me. And there weren't really any appropriate knacks that made sense to me. Do you change the hero once everyone's goals are completed if you're human? Well, shout out to Irish Gaelic, by the way. It's great language. I'm learning Irish Gaelic. It's just, as an English speaker, doesn't look pronounceable. Thankfully, there are pronunciation guides that do a good enough job. I have Irish friends who have some issue with the pronunciation, but no one really knows like 4 different dialects for Irish, so, you know, there's that. Do you change? Yeah, go back to the question. Do you change the hero once everyone's goals are completed if you're human? It's up to you. It depends what story you're trying to tell, really. So, the rule book's in there, but you can't see because of the PDF and the way I've got the screen so that you don't see the sidebars. The hero book is 338 pages. a lot of that is where is it? Where is it? These first two chapters, which is world information, compared to Origin, which is 215 pages, most of which is explaining the rules. You do need the Origin book to play. It is the core rule book, and everything builds on top of that with this is how you make a hero, this is how you make a demigod, I assume. There will be a companion, but that'll just be extra options. I'm so excited for the companion. But essentially you tell the story you want to do, and then you could all reach a point where you want to just move over to hero, take it up a tier. A note on that I mentioned last time, but I'll mention it again for people who weren't here then. You can play as legendary creatures, denizens of the world. Not every denizen can reach the same tier, so Kitsune and Satyrs can be heroes, but I think one of them can't then go on to be demigods. General rules. I don't know where it says it, but there is not a hard limit, because obviously every game will be different, every table will have different needs, but there is a theoretical limit, an advisable limit to how far you can go as a legendary creature. But if you're human, if you're just Origin level, you basically play until you're happy with the point, to reach a point where you want to change game, and then just change game. And there are rules for converting characters from Origin to hero. This is your listed equipment experience table. You see every game you attend gives you one experience, etc. Something that's great about this versus older OP games, it's just a flat cost. It's just a flat cost to increase things. There's no times the required rating by a number. It's not exponential. It's just a flat cost, which is great because experience is slower. It balances out. So you get to the point where theoretically you could just play until you fill all of these dots. So you've got 5 in everything, which at that point, you're lying at home to do maths. You know what? So do I. I'm good at maths. I have to be, but it was a pain. It was always a pain, especially when you're doing pre-gens. When you're rolling 10 dice for every task, it's not as fun because there's basically no way you're going to lose. And Origin has it has example antagonists, which I'll be referring to in a future point when I need to come to creating antagonists. But you'd be wiping the floor with them at that point. There's no need for it. That's what hero's for. So you could just do it as complete a band deed. Ask a question of, can you play as Titans? You know the answer. You can technically play as anything, but yes, you can play as Titans. It might require some rejigging of certain things, but you can totally play as Titans. Whether or not you want to be an anti-hero, it obviously is up to you, but you could. To answer the original question, though, you could just play until you've completed the band deed and move on to hero. You could play until you've completed 2 band deeds, move on to hero. It's one of those where it's kind of play until the story moves on naturally. Like, so a Rude Awakening, that'll be you play up until the obviously it's a published thing, it's pre-written, so you just play up until the end of the Chronicle, and then you move over to Hero for part 2. But I'm going to be approaching it as if it were just something that I'm writing for my table. I would think he says being so passive, the same as playing supernatural creature, wouldn't it? Yeah. So yeah, you could treat it as playing a I've lost the appendix. There we go. It's just playing a denizen of the world over here. And it just tell you how to adjust them with like examples, which is great. Examples are always good. Again, that's why I'm doing this. But it's just so I'll go over to here. Each pantheon gives you the titans, or it gives you some titans for the pantheons that have titans. We'll use the Kami, because Ash is our example for all of this. So the titans for the Kami, for the Amatsu Kami, for the Kami, whichever you prefer. Fujin and Raijin. And Nezumo, I don't know. Again, I apologize, I don't speak Japanese. I don't know why I picked Japanese. I don't know why I picked a Chinese character for the pre-gens. So they have access to purviews. It is what it is. They have fewer purviews than others. But they don't have callings, they have virtues. But you could just quite easily, if you wanted to use the Titan as written and be that kind of Titan spawn, and you didn't want to use the legendary creature route, you wanted to treat it as just a normal, Scion, you pick 3 callings. The virtues, you can kind of squeeze them into place. So dominance would be leadership, for example. Fecundity would be health. I think fertility comes under health. Oh, right. They're all in this book. No, Nax. Calling an axe. There we go. I think fertility is a healer thing. No. It's there somewhere. I promise. Oh, I'm thinking of the purview. So fecundity could be lover, for example. Or creator. That makes more sense. And then you'd pick a third example. So going back to the Fujin, fecundity could be lover, dominance could be leadership. And then, what does it say about Fujin? Magic. Strange creatures, sailors, cares for nothing else but blowing wind. Appears as a monstrous green skin demon with red hair and a leopard skin loincloth with a large bag of wind. Obviously, if you're doing this, do your own research to make it sure it fits, but liminal, wind and journeys, warrior. A lot of Titans are probably going to be warriors, have the warrior calling. And then purviews, just pick some that make sense with the myths, with the themes of the Titan that you're the spawn of. So I don't think there's an... There we go, purviews. Ah, crud. Doesn't give you the full list of purviews. I think this is where it says about you can't have access to purviews if you're an origin character. Anyway, yeah, there's no actual list of purviews. That's annoying. But as I say, just check the myths, do some research, figure out what works best. It's really so easy to add to pantheons or create pantheons. I was planning on doing it for this actually, for like a, again as an example of practicing what you preach. So that's how you would play as a Titan spawn if you didn't want to use the legendary creature route. Going back to the magic handkerchief, which roleplay makes you say a lot of strange things. Plus 2 relic, 2 relic gives you a 2-dot relic. Sorry, it gives you +1 enhancement to medicine. And I was thinking, going back to page 221, I think is the relics. It is. Haha. Rather than a knack, give it a custom stunt. So, or actually no, it was a... Sorry, access to a knack in situational things. So handkerchief, obviously used for wiping wounds, for binding wounds. So perhaps it gives you access to a knack that if it's used to clean a wound, you can never have... that's what the bare minimum is, though. That's annoying. This is the problem when you double down on an idea. If you're making something that the rules don't have provided for you, you can create redundancies. However, you can learn other knacks. So I was thinking if you use the handkerchief to clean a bleeding wound, and that's too general, that would probably be a 3-dot relic. I need a specific circumstance. Could be clean a bleeding wound under certain circumstances. If you have an idea that's general, that's broad, and you can't think of any way to satisfyingly narrow it, constrain it some other way. So it could be if you use it to clean a bleeding wound at night or under the moon. It removes one complication related to illness, maybe, or the patient gains one enhancement to resist illness. Trivial patients resist non-magical illness. That seems feasible. Well, I'll write it down. I've got nothing to lose. So I guess knack. If used to clean, I'm just gonna go to the second line manually. A wound. Under the light of the moon. Oops. Nope. Patient gains 1E to resist. And again, I'm keeping it as a minor, a small enhancement, because you should never have more than 5, I think it recommends, or 3. I think it's 3. Otherwise, there's no point making the roll. You're almost guaranteed to succeed. Like, if you succeed, if you get any success, you just do the thing. So it's awe-inspiring, and you buy off all the complications and stuff. Gains 1E to resist illness / disease from that injury. Obviously, kind of with any when they kind of homebrew thing like this, where you're taking the rules, you're using the guidelines of the rules to create something that the rules don't really have any support for. If you're happy to just like write it, leave it, send it on and use it as is, that's fine. All power to you. What I tend to do is I'm honest with my players. I say that I'm not sure about the mechanical strength of this thing. It's subject to feedback during play. And a lot of the time it's fine. I tend to do it for games that I'm really familiar with. So I have that kind of mechanical knowledge there already, and kind of cuts down on, no, please rewrite this sentence. Also, I have a fairly analytical mind, so when it comes to wording things, I usually get the right wording first time to produce the intended effect. Also, words are my thing. I enjoy speaking and writing and using them. So, just be upfront with your players. Obviously, this character sheet won't be publicly available. I mean, obviously, you could copy it right now if you wanted. This character sheet won't be publicly available until I finish the Chronicle and kind of upload it to StoryPath Nexus, where it will be credited to, with the help of the theonyxpath Twitch community. And as I said last week, probably as a pay what you want title, just to help me continue to do stuff like this. but also because I don't want to take the credit and money for other people's ideas. It's I don't mind not being paid, if that makes sense. I'm in this more for the community. I earn money doing other things. So I do have time to go through this, and obviously anything is subject to change before final release, and even after release, documents can be edited, errata can be pushed out, that kind of thing. So if any big changes are reported, obviously I'll work on that. But for now, as a 2-dot relic, going by these rules, these guidelines, I should say, a 2-dot relic can have a general +1 enhancement that applies all the time. So if you're rolling medicine and you're using this handkerchief in some way, you get a +1 bonus to it. And then also gives you access to a knack. Generally speaking, an effect that's broad enough to apply in time the relic is used should add 1 dot more than 1 that only applies in certain circumstances. So the certain circumstances is if you use it under the light of the full moon. To use it to clean a wound under the light of the full moon, the patient gains 1 enhancement to resist illness/disease from that injury. Again, this is something that you could develop through character advancement. Sorry. And certainly when it comes to creating these characters for Hero, this is probably an item that I'll revisit. I think with Ash in particular, because they are starting with 2 birthrights, those birthrights will improve with them. Maybe gain access to the purview through it. Maybe add a different knack. Maybe alter this knack slightly. Whatever. I was going to put +1 here. There we go. I'm also going to zoom in to make sure there are no egregious typing errors that I've missed. Because that does happen when I'm zoomed out all the way typing PDFs. Oh, look, it's gone all black. That's interesting. So this second line is black on the capture and on my monitor, but on... Oh, that's black. Never mind. So, creature fox, 2 dots. Magic handkerchief, which I still need to name. 2-dot relic, +1 to medicine. Knack, if used to clean a wound under the light of the moon, the patient gains +1 enhancement to resist illness, disease from the injury. Yes, that's all spelled correctly. So we need a motif, which is like a short descriptive phrase. I am 100% abusing commas for this, colons for this. Oh, right, I'll just do it on the 3rd line, it's fine. Here we go. Motif. So this is a short descriptive phrase about how the relic does its thing. A short phrase that determines the scope of the marvels that a Scion can and thus can't perform through the relic. Describes the concept of its legend. So in this instance, it's light of the moon, has to be touching. It's all about cleansing. Healing, soothing. Oh, there we go. How about, for now at least, obviously this again can change. Soothing touch of the moon's light. So it has to be touching, but it's calming, it's relaxing, playing into the restriction on the knack. The motif might change. Again, at origin, you don't need the motif, but I want there to be hints of supernatural stuff running throughout all of this. I mean, a fox isn't really a normal pet, for example, but, you know, it's by the by that it does happen. So the motif isn't needed here, but I just feel like it adds that kind of hint of something else. The motif is something that the player knows, but the character doesn't necessarily know, certainly in origin, so, you know, it is what it is. Hit the right button. Moonlit cloth. And there we go. think that works. We've got a name, the Moonlit Cloth. We've got that it says 2-dot relic, gives you enhancement, gives you a knack, has a motif. At some point, I'll probably name the fox just because... No, I won't. I'll leave it up to the player to name the fox because that is why I haven't named any contacts. And... yes. I'm happy with that. So I won't save it for now, but we will go back to... I'll just quickly check my show notes if there's anything else I wanted to speak about. No, we've covered Birthright with half an hour left. Okay, so final stage of character creation was that. However, not only is there character advancement in Scion, there is also tweaks. So rather than improving your character, there's changing your character. There are small changes that you make kind of between sessions. So you can shift one dot from one attribute to another attribute or from one skill to another skill as long as you tell people you've done this and then roleplay having done that. You can change your knacks if you have more than one knack. So at Origin, you can have one knack active. That's the rules. You have 1 dot of calling. You have no legend. You are, let's say, mortal plus, shall we? So you can only ever have one knack active, but if you have more than one, as most of the pre-gens do, apart from Martina and Ash, you can swap them around. Or you can change your short-term deed. Short-term deeds, as I say, they're I believe I said this last time. They're character goals. All these are character goals. Short-terms are ones that you can complete in the short term. It's, you know, what it says on the tin, really. So that's something you can also do during sessions. So that's what tweaks are. So I believe that wraps up character creation. So we have Ash now, which is good. So I'll minimize the PDF. I can delete this. Do that. Again, I say again a lot. This note thing is just so that you have something to look at, so you know what I'm talking about. There we go. Oh, no, it just took a while to paste it in. I would delete this bit when I'm done with it, but just so that we know what I'm talking about. Wow, that's a big heading. So first stream was kind of GM tips, and I've been trying to, over the past 2 streams and most of this one, kind of explain where I'm coming from, how I approach gaming, how I approach writing chronicles. And again, I said it again, your mileage may vary. You'll find certain things work for you better than they work for me. You'll do them and I won't. What I do, however, is run a lot of introductory sessions and taste the games for a wide variety of game systems. That's my primary source of income right now. And let me tell you, being a professional GM is tiring. So I know... I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about when talking about writing introductory games. Getting people into the hobby is my main interest. That's why I created my website. That's how we roll dice.wordpress.com. That's why I do things like this. That's why I did my original D&D run on my Twitch channel. I know role-playing is not for everyone, but I think that everyone should give it a go. And I think that it should be as easy as possible to give it a go. And some, as I say, it's not for everyone. I get that. But some people don't... Some people aren't sure about how to do introductory scenarios or how to... thank you, Plastic Age Plays. How to kind of even approach introducing people to the hobby. And whether that's because they've never GM before or they can't remember being first-timers or for whatever reason. Also, just a quick note on the time. I did start this at 2:10, so if it's fine with the theonyxpath overlords, I'll go till 4:10. I can stop at 4 though. It's no big deal. I was held up by unforeseen circumstances this morning, so I was just running a bit behind schedule. So I do apologize. But as I say, I run a lot of intro games, and I've had a lot of time to think about what works and what doesn't work. I've had feedback. I'd like to think I can listen to criticism. Cool. Schedule is clear. It might be because it's early in the morning and everything else happens in the evening. So you'll notice the big heading, ethos behind Chronicle writing. That's just my show note heading. Really, it's an ethos behind writing an introductory Chronicle. Last question is, do you teach games personally over videos? Do you look for a new set of people to run games? Largely over video, because that's how I reach the largest audience. As I say, I do have a website. That's how we roll dice.wordpress.com. I mean, I'm 100% going to abuse my mod power, but this is my website. It's very basic. That's my website. The articles tab does have kind of intro articles about how to get started role playing and how to do common things. I'm not sure quite. Okay. Yeah. So things like that are under articles. Because they were just common questions. I need to redo a lot of those articles. A lot of them are from when I wasn't as experienced as I am now, so it'll be more prescriptive in a way, but it should give you a general idea. When my Twitch community is big enough, I do want to run games, and if theonyxpath ever need like a one-shot and I have the time, I'm happy to run something. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Or to play in something, also hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I just need advance warning. But I'm also, as I say, I'm on Twitter. Link will be, all of this will come at the end. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Twitch. Obviously, these streams, I'll answer questions. I'll answer any question you send to me throughout any format. Also, the theonyxpath Discord, the link was earlier. I'm on that. I check that pretty much daily, or a lot every day. I'm trying to be better at Discord stuff. But I will answer any question and offer any advice I can. Black Plague is the short answer. I have a fair amount of experience at this point. 9 years, in fact. So when it comes to less writing, more creating, yes, theonyxpath has a Discord. The Silicon Path occasionally drops the link for it, but I'm sure Plastic Age Plays can. When it comes, as I say, less writing, more creating, because again, I don't believe in prescriptive storytelling. It is not to my shame, but I regret that I used my earlier articles and kind of earlier engagements with the internet at large. Oh, hey, that's the standard Nightbot command. I could have done that. Sorry. We're more leaning towards what I call guided play or railroading. When creating intro games, there's a few things I try to do that I'll be applying here. But I wanted to get this all out of the way so that when we do start writing the Chronicle, it'll make sense. And I'll probably recover these points when I write other Chronicles because, as I say, I like creating that introductory scenario. This won't be a quick start. There won't be rules included. There is a quick start already. Get that. This will be an introductory thing. You'll have characters, and it'll be theoretically written in such a way that it makes sense and introduces mechanics. So, as a general outline, your intro games shouldn't be... I'm using tab. I really shouldn't use tab, but I'm using tab. You shouldn't have more than 3 scenes in mind. You know what? Let's copy paste that. Cut that even. Drop that here. Get rid of the tab spaces, and we're good. You shouldn't have more than 3 scenes in mind. Obviously, if you have time, if time isn't a problem for you, then this is less of a restriction. My taster sessions run for about 3 hours. Half an hour to an hour of that is explaining character sheets usually. And people, obviously, when you confront with a character sheet you don't understand, it can be a bit overwhelming. So I give everyone a rundown so they know where to look and what each bit does, and then we progress from there. But 3 scenes gives you a beginning, a middle, and an end. They don't have to take part in different places. You could have... so I'll just use the familiar examples I have. Scene 1, party camp. Scene 2, castle. Scene 3, combat in castle. Using fantasy role-playing as an example in Scion. We'll get to that, next time. But 3 scenes gives you basic story structure, gives you enough time to help the players grasp the core mechanics of the rules, which is always an important thing to do before tackling any big themes. Make sure everyone knows how the rules work and how the dice work. The largest problem I had when I was kind of starting doing anything role-playing wise, whether that was the events I run for the cafe or for things like this, I wasn't confident in myself enough in how the game worked to talk about it. So now it's kind of, if I can figure out how the core mechanic of the game works and how that plays into the themes of the game, I'm golden. So 3 scenes gives you that. And also, just to kind of wrap up the 3 scene point, 2 points. One is Western storytelling tradition rules of 3, beginning, middle, end, 3 fathers, the 3 bears. 3 gives you the repetition without too much emphasis. And as I say, it's just time. Role playing, obviously, quite time intensive. There's the maxim that, again, in D&D, a 3-day walk takes 5 minutes. A 1-minute combat takes 3 hours, because it does. Anytime, in fact, with the exception of a few games, combat takes a lot of time, and combat for a lot of games, not so much in Scion actually, which is great because there's an even kind of distribution of intrigue, action, adventure, and I can't remember the name of the 3rd scene structure. You can't see it, but I've pulled up the PDF again. Procedural, there we go. So Scion breaks up into 3 areas of action. Action adventure, which is, your combat, your action heavy scenes, foot chases, that kind of thing. You're probably going to be rolling your power attributes a lot. Procedurals, which is clue finding, investigations, that kind of thing. And intrigue, which is your social aspected scenes. I like the fact that those are explicitly broken down, and the character sheet supports that kind of spread. So certainly you could have 1 scene of each, but any time a game enters what Scion defines as an action adventure scene, so a combat scene or any contested roles, that kind of thing, the game necessarily is going to slow down a little bit and take far longer than you expect. Social scenes can either take far longer than you expect or take way less time than you thought they would. So having the 3 scenes, you'll probably only do 2 of them in an intro game, but having an extra one never hurts anyone. But also just have them as have flexible scenes. Obviously, this is going to be slightly not practicing what I preach because this is written content. Pre-written, published material that will hopefully be used by people. But I'll try to keep it vague enough that nothing is set in stone. I'm probably going to write story beats. My general idea is, if they go behind the curtain of behind the screen, is that it'll be titled like scene 1, scene 2, but they'll just be the important beats of the scene will be described. Any important NPCs, any important facts that the players should take away from the scene will be included there. But you as an intro game for a one-off, 3 scenes is kind of the limit. And that's more for best practice reasons than anything. So I guess I'll just write it out and then explain what I mean by each one. So low stakes, freedom. I'll just put action. Each scene roughly will correspond to either being low stakes, freedom, or action. The low stakes I usually put as the first scene. This is entirely to familiarize players with mechanics. I will do this with the core mechanic of the game to reinforce the core theme of the game. In games where there's games of a less abstract nature, I guess, or games that focus on one particular facet of the gameplay experience, this will be where that is introduced. For games like Scion, or to some extent D&D, to use the most well-known example, where they technically encompass a broad range of not abilities but spheres of influence in a way. So the social, the investigation, and the combat. I will try to include at least 2 of these. I generally start with a social scene. This is something that I did when I ran a one-shot session of then New World of Darkness at the Student Nationals Role-Playing and Wargaming Championship, which is a charitable tournament held by universities in the UK. It's technically international. When we hosted it, we had, I want to say, a Dutch competitor, but I could be wrong. I know they were from Scandinavia somewhere, or Northern Europe. Anyway, this is something I started there, and it really worked well. So it's something I do all the time now when I'm running taster sessions, is you just have a low, like no stake, entirely social scene, usually inviting the characters to tell a story or prompting a conversation. I'll have 1 or 2 SGCs in this instance present in the scene to take the burden of that, to spark conversation or to tell their own story, to give an example, and then introduce something into the scenario to upset that balance a little bit, to make it not to upset the comfort, to make the players uncomfortable, but to say, hey, look, this is another thing the game supports. So, again, going back to the example with the taster sessions, because they're very formulaic, usually, as I say, there's the conversation scene, and as part of the same scene, a minor fight will happen. I won't use the full combat rules. It'll be kind of, and I'll explain to the players that this, we'll get onto that eventually, but this is the general gist of how it works. This is where you look on the sheet. This is how you assemble the dice pool. This is where you check if you've got any callings which would be applicable. Something I might do, thinking about it, actually, is produce a reference sheet. Oh no, because I don't know the rules. Never mind, I won't do that. I suppose I could provide a blank reference sheet for people to write their callings on for these pre-gens. That's just something to think about. But if it's a combat, there should be almost no chance of the players dying. You don't want to kill the players in the first roll. You don't want to kill the players at all, personally, in my opinion, but some people like doing that, and that's more power to them, as long as everyone has the same expectations. But it's low stakes, it's designed purely to introduce players to the concepts behind and the mechanics behind that kind of side of the game. So, conversation helps them get in character, gets the dice rolling, something happens, again, usually a fight. And then they get the freedom. And this is where I explain there's no wrong way to do things. The world is your oyster to explore. Sometimes this is also where I explain different GMing styles. As I've said, I prefer more open-ended GMing, building the story with the players rather than you must go here and do this and then this and then this, because players will not pick up on obvious plot hooks and they will investigate the smallest things that you didn't really put any time into. But the freedom scene is usually where I explain that you can do whatever you want. You can follow the plot hook that I've dangled in front of you, and I will lampshade it. I will address it as a plot hook, or you can do your own thing. You could go this way, do this. You could go this way and look for something else to do. Most of the time, they will, do certainly introductory sessions, taster sessions. They'll do the obvious plot hook because they're not comfortable enough with the game to want to do anything else, and that's fine. And then, so that's the freedom. That's more exploration, learning about the world, learning the setting, that kind of thing. And more getting a feel for how your character interacts with the world on a macro scale. And then action is what action sounds like. It's something that upsets the balance. It upsets the status quo. It's a good way to end a session with a brawl, to get people's blood going, to that feeling of triumph as we succeeded, we did the thing, we'll come back and give you more money. No, I just want everyone to have fun, and a lot of people like fighting in games. Finding the balance of the three, social, investigation, and fighting, is difficult in some games. I don't really think it is in Scion, from having read the rulebook a few times, but again, GM preference. I tend to run quite combat light games anyway, so I'm not really the best person to talk about this kind of thing, but those are the three kind of things I try to hit when doing introductory sessions. And so this is what I'm going to try to do, writing this chronicle and probably future chronicles. Obviously less so in chapters 2, 3, and 4, especially by God level. I would really hope that the players know how to play the game. But those are freedom and action usually take place in. Those are the three scenes essentially. When I say you shouldn't have more than 3 scenes in mind, but they can be anything. They should be generic enough ideas that you can put them anywhere, no matter what the players do. So in the freedom step, if they take a left when the plot hook says go right, you could just move whatever was on the right to the left, change it a little bit. They'll never know the difference. A player doesn't know it's gone wrong until you tell them, and a player doesn't know you're reusing an idea until you tell them. And the players don't know anything until you tell them, is what I'm trying to get at. Just trust your gut, be flexible, happy improv. Obviously, as I've said, this is going to be written content, and I'm going to try and leave it vague enough that you can move things around, but it's by its very nature, it's going to have to be constrained. So as an example, what I'm thinking of doing, so the low stakes scenes, these are introductory scenes, probably one-on-one, play a character story guide, maybe have the other players play minor characters, like trivial characters in the background. Then you have something happens, player characters. There might be some risk of taking injury, but not a great risk of death. Well, no risk of death. Then you get the freedom bit, which is exploring, solving the thing. I will be writing this using the, I can't remember the word. So something Scion Hero does is it gives you several ways of creating different types of story. Here we go. So it gives you the Western structure, which is what most of us, well, that's certainly what I know, and I guess what most of the English-speaking world knows is the antagonist has a motivation. They have a scheme. Players come together. Do what they do. I will be following a Kisho Tenketsu structure, which is a Japanese style of storytelling. It doesn't always have an antagonist. This one will have, because it's an introductory scenario, but it doesn't always have an antagonist. And it follows a three-step process, and the heroes meet. They meet in a location. There is a twist. Where is the actual... There was an example somewhere. There we go. Narrative is divided into 4 basic parts. Initial situations, so this will be the introductory scenes. Introducing the setting and characters. An elaboration of that situation, which will be the freedom section. It'll be the thing that happens. A twist in the story, which will be something that will alter the player's understanding of what's happening around them. And then a reconciliation of all 3 things. Now, I don't, as it is an origin thing, and it's intended purely as an introductory idea, I'll probably just do kind of 4 chunks, 1 per step of that story structure. And then kind of wrap it all up with visitations, so that if they wish to, you can then go on to hero, or you can use the characters to tell your own origin chronicle for a little bit longer. There are other stories. There is Igbo story structure. Igbo Eze, I think. I assume it's a African based on the language, but I don't know. Different story structure to Western or Kisho Tenketsu. But that's how I'm going to approach this chronicle next time when I start writing. Divided into these roughly 3 sections of low stakes introduction, freedom for them to do whatever they want, and then the crescendo. I know a lot of games will say start with a fight to grab everyone's attention, and that works in some games. I don't want to do that in this instance. I want the players to realize that the world is happening. Big W. The world is happening to their characters. How are their characters reacting to these obviously supernatural effects? And I think that's it. That is everything my show notes wanted me to discuss. So next time we'll actually get on to writing the darned thing. With the introductory scenes, we'll be, as I say, probably doing a general overview of what the scene includes, any important characters, maybe a brief description of that character of the story guide to consult, that kind of thing. I might also use that opportunity to create some low-level custom antagonists for the thing that will draw the heroes together. But who knows? Anyway. So that's my stream for today. However, I think it was Silicon Bot has been sharing links to 2 Kickstarters that are currently happening. Handiwork Games and theonyxpath are bringing the best adversaries from the history of the Creature Collection to 5th edition. Scarred Lands Creature Collection 5e is a full-colour, 1 creature per page hardcover bestiary for the world's favourite role-playing game, which, if you support that, I believe will make Plastic Age plays very happy indeed. Also, we have the Renegades, which is the next book in the Chronicles of Darkness, which I wanted so bad. In Deviant the Renegades, players take on the characters of the Remade, human beings who have been transformed into something else through the action of human actors. No millennia old curse, moon spirit's favour, or supernatural watchtower changed the Remade into what they are. Their state is the result of chanted spells, long surgeries, experimental treatments, bizarre accidents, or alchemical poisons. Their creators, progenitors, have human faces. They are people who saw what lurks in the shadows of the world and wanted power for themselves. Many Remade, devoted, still serve the conspiracies that changed them. Their player characters are renegades, remade to have escaped the clutches of their creators, for now. It seems to be Promethean the Created from the other side, which just, so good. Check both of those out. The link for Scarred Lands is in chat right now. If you're watching this on the YouTube recording, I don't know if the Scarred Lands will still be going, but if you're watching it the day it goes live next week, Deviant should be. Thank you for your time and effort for being here, Black Plague. I hope that my explanations at least made some sense. I will probably be streaming on my channel for a short time, like an hour or so, like 10 minutes from now. That's just Comrade Bubbles. It's beneath the webcam for a reason. That's my Twitter handle as well. So if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to drop into my Twitch channel. Tweet at me if you have Twitter. As I say, the theonyxpath Discord's also a great place to contact any of the content creators. I'm on there as Ryan hyphen behind the screen, I believe, because I ran out of characters for the full thing I wanted to write. Thank you for being here. I know there's a slight stream delay, so I will ask, are there any lingering questions? And then take a drink while, if there are lingering questions, people type them out. These streams are a lot of fun, by the way. I know I speak quickly. Partly nerves, partly just enthusiasm. Oh, and as always, obviously, if you want to support the channel, please consider subbing, following, sharing the relevant links to people. I will take that as a no lingering questions for now. So this is a bi-weekly thing. So next time will be the 15th. Yes, the 15th will be the next time this happens. Oh, yes. How many games do I run personally? I run a regular D&D campaign. I play in a regular D&D campaign. I run 4 games a month for the cafe. Usually two of those are D&D and then 2 are non-D&D. I'm probably going to run Scion this month, or try to run Scion this month, actually. I run a lot, and it's tiring, but incredibly... Oh, I also run 2 just irregular games of D&D. Not enough theonyxpath gaming for my liking, but people are more. I play what I play what people are interested in, unfortunately. Yeah. So the next one of these will be the 15th. So please do, feel free to come back for that. Until then, I guess run some Scardlands. Yeah, that's based off 5e, right? I know 5e. Well, I'm just going to switch back over to the pre-roll, but obviously I'll be in the chat room for a while. So thank you, everyone, again, for being here. We appreciate it. Not enough theonyxpath for any of us. Ain't that the truth? Black Plague, ain't that the truth? Anyway, I'm going to end the YouTube recording. So goodbye, YouTube.